Okay, so recording has started. Once again, this call is being recorded and we place our recordings on our YouTube channel. If you don't want to be recorded, you may want to drop off now. So thank you again and welcome to another session of Azure Power Lunch. Here is a quick agenda. We're going to be talking about how we can use Azure Active Directory and OAuth to protect our APIs in API management. I think we discussed this topic briefly, but some things have changed. We have um, a new version of Azure Active Directory for some time, V2. They have simplified things. So we're going to see how quickly we can protect those APIs. And most organization which are security sensitive, they don't want to use just the API key. Yes, API key is there, you can use it, and we'll still be using API key, but the main authentication will happen through OAuth and Azure Active Directory. Okay, so here's the quick agenda. We will quickly go over API management, just 1 or 2 minutes to do a level set. Then we will go over the a couple of slides on how we are doing it, and most of the time will be spent on demo. Okay, so that's the goal. So let's quickly go over Azure API Management. This is a logical architecture. It's an API broker service from Microsoft. It allows you to separate the implementation of your API from presentation. Okay, so your APIs may be implemented in SOAP, REST, or they may be using different sort of authentication, or kind of a different sort of format. But you can use this middle layer, this broker, to expose those APIs to your end customer and to your own organization in the way you desire. So that's how we are achieving this kind of separation of implementation of the API versus the presentation of the API. And just want to mention that a detailed discussion about API management is out of the scope of this meeting. Please, there's many videos. We have covered API management in the past. Look at those videos or look at other material if you want to know more about Azure API management. Okay. Second thing is, quickly, let me just go to the next slide. So this is the high level architecture um, of kind of where we talk about API management. And as you can see here, this is the authentication piece we are talking about. You have the middle tier, you have a developer portal. This is the where you are going to be consuming those APIs. You apply for subscriptions and all that. You have the gateway, which is the key piece, which is the actual broker, which does kind of actual brokering of the API. And then you have the Azure portal itself, where you set up, you do the management of API management, actually, feature. And just keep in mind, there used to be a management portal as well for API management, is now deprecated. So with that, let's see any questions so far. Just want to make sure. Uh, One thing that I want to mention here. So this is kind of how this whole thing works in regards to how you protect your APIs with APIM, with Azure AD and OAuth 2. So first of all, you have a client app that is trying to call an API in Azure API Management. So first thing it does is this app will get a token from Azure Active Directory. So, and you have already set up two app registration, one to represent the client app and one to represent the API app or APIs in your Azure API management. And by the way, we'll go through these step by step and actually do it in the demo. Okay. So that's that. Once you get that token, the next thing you do is you call the API with this token. And once it goes to the API management, it will go back and check with API with Azure Active Directory. Okay, yeah, I got this token to validate it. And once that is validated, and how it is validated is through a JWT policy. So you have, as you know, the API management allows you to apply policies for rate limiting, for transformation, just like that, you have a JWT policy which allow you to validate a JWT token and JWT token. And once that is validated and confirmed, then it returns back the results to um, client app. Okay, so that's how this whole flow works. If there are no questions, I would like to move to the next slide. So these are all the steps. And what I've done is I have outlined those steps here with the appropriate resources. So if you are trying to follow this through the demo or through, through the slide deck, you should be able to get to each step. And so before we go any further, uh, please let me know if any questions, and we are going to jump into a quick demo. Okay, so here we go. So here is an API management resource that I have created, and I'm not going to go into the detail. I have imported different APIs, and one of the API is the APL auth demo. It's just importing the conference API. If you look at the Azure API management site, it gives you a kind of a sample API that you can import, just for a quick start. That's what I'm doing. Okay. If I want to call this API, I can go into, for example, I want to get sessions. What I can do is I can go into the test and I can select the appropriate product and I can say, okay, send, and it will call the API and it will return all the information. As you can see, there is no authentication set up at this moment as we speak. So what we're going to do is in the next 22 minutes, we're going to set up the authentication and test this thing out. So let's see. Let's see how we can do it. So please um, um, follow me and let me increase the font size a little bit so everybody can see it better. Okay. So with that, let me just quickly do one thing here. Yeah, so I'm gonna go into the Azure Active Directory and okay. So first of all, I am going to go into the app registration and I'm going to create an app registration my um, for my API app. Okay, so let's do that first. So I'm gonna go into new registration and I'm gonna name it very creative name. So here we go, 3. Okay, and that's it. I'm not gonna do anything, and I'm just gonna register it. Okay, so this is and by the way, if you look at the steps, I am just following the step. Create an API registration. This is the link. Okay, second thing we are gonna do is we are gonna do app roles to our app registration. Before, app roles were available through manifest and they were kind of a kludgy to do, but now they are the first class citizens. So I'm going to create app roles. Okay. So first app role, I'm going to go in and I am going to call the first app role conf members, and I'm going to say you can add both users and group. And just for the sake of simplicity and to save time, I'm just going to give the same to description. Just keep in mind, if you just do user and groups, then you can add Azure AD users and groups. But if you do both, then you can add applications as well, which is a good thing. Okay, depending on if you need it or not. Okay, that's the first one. Second role is that we're going to add is conf admin. And let me explain why we are doing this. The reason why we are adding roles, because we may have different users. So we have different APIs. We don't want every user to call every API. We want to make sure that users can only call certain sets of API, and we can set this authentication up either at the API level or at the API operation level. So think of it. We are doing RBAC for our APIs. That's what we are trying to do. So we did the roles. Let's see what is the next step. So we go in. Now we need to add users and groups to these roles. Okay. In order to do that, we will have to go to the overview and we have to go over in the service principal. We go in there, we go into users and groups, and we say add user and group. And first of all, we pick the user and we pick, Dak Prescott, and we add him as a member, assign, and we will repeat this step for a few other users. Um, and we do Azure admin and select, and then we assign it to conf admins. And the last thing we do is we again pick, and to be honest, this user interface could have been a little bit improved, um, like allowing you to select multiple roles, so we don't have to do this like multiple times. Okay, but in any case, let's do it, and then we add him as conf member as well. Okay, so now that is done. Okay, we have all the rules set up. Let's see what is the next step. Okay, expose the API and the scope. So we now have to expose this API, I mean, as a API data step that is needed. So let's go back to our app registration, go to expose an API, and let's say add a scope. First of all, it will say add application URI. This is just a GUID. We just say yes. And in regards to the scope, we go in and we add the um, scope of API dot call. Okay. And we say admin users, and we just copy it everywhere, and we add the, and by the way, you can add multiple scopes as well, and you can give user access to different scopes, and you can use those scopes in your JWT token as well. So you can do that as well. We are not going that far, but that's what we are trying to do. Okay, so here we are gonna try to do our first test, and we will use um, what we call Azure CLI to do that. Okay, so let me just open Azure CLI. Give me 1 second. In the meantime, any questions? Okay, give me 1 second. Yes, so what I'm gonna do is I want to show you something here. Let me just move that window Azure CLI here, and I want to show you something. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to get a token for my app using the ID that I signed in. So let me go there. This is my app. This is its client ID. So this is the client ID that I'm going to copy, and I'm going to try to get a token with that. Okay. So let's do this, and we come here. So what we are trying to do is we are trying to get a token, um, and we will get an error. Okay, why we are getting an error? It is saying that you are trying to use Azure CLI to get a token. At this moment, our client app is Azure CLI. Azure CLI is acting as a client app, but client app has no access to our API. Okay, so what we have to do is we have to give the client app, which is, and by the way, this is the app ID, this GUID that you see that I'm highlighting, that's the app ID of the Azure CLI. So we are going to give Azure CLI authorization on our API. But keep in mind, it doesn't mean that anybody can call it. It still, it will allow us to get a token on that behalf. That's all it will do. Okay. So, and if that user is authorized, then anything will move forward. So here is what we are going to do. We are going to go into API. Sorry, we are going to go into expose an API and add a client application. We will post the client ID. This is the client ID of our Azure CLI app, and we are going to say add. Okay, done. That's it. So we did it. We added it. Let's try to run that command again and let's see what happens. Did we save it or not? Let's double check it. Yes, we saved it. So why it is? That's the fun with a live demo. Okay, I think I missed the login. Let me just log in again.
Sometimes it takes a minute.
Yeah, that's the thing with a live demo. It's sometime you know you don't have that minute. Here we go. Here we go. Yes. Okay, I signed in now. Let's go back there and let's try it again. Yes. Okay. So finally we got the token. Okay. So let's take this token and analyze it. And I think everybody, I hope everybody is familiar with this, JWT validation. And I'm going to go to this side, paste this token here, and let's see. So look, so I am logged in as Azure admin. I am getting a token for the API app using Azure CLI. Azure CLI is allowed to request a token. Just keep in mind, it's requesting a token on my behalf. And look at that. Azure admin, IP address, all the fun stuff. This is golden. This is what we were looking for. So it has those roles. You remember, you know, um, I added myself, Azure admin, to those roles. So those roles are showing up here. So that's the key thing to note down. Okay. So once we have those roles, let's see. And now let's set up our JWT token and try to set up our validation for that API. And folks, I know there are a few steps, but please feel free to ask if there are any questions. Okay. We go back here, we go to design, all operations, and I'm going to apply a policy at the top level. I'm going to click add policy. And at this point, I am going to select, where is that? Yeah, validate JWT. And there are two ways you can do the full, or you can do, you know, uh, fill it up like this. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to fill it up. So first of all, the name of the header is authorization. Yes, that's the name of the header. 401 unauthorized. In the case, if there is an error, what message we want to show? We want to show that this is the, and you can customize that message. I'm just going to paste this message that is there. Access token, unauthorized access token is invalid. In regards to the audience, I'm going to add two audiences here. One is the, and let's look at the token, what audience we have here. You see, this is the audience. This is the audience. Okay. So I'm just going to copy that. So this is just a claim. That's all I'm doing here. Nothing fancy schmancy or this. I'm going to add another audience because sometimes audience appear without this API prefix. So here we go. We're going to add these two audiences here. And I'm going to add the open ID URL. And this is unique for my tenant. So let me copy that and paste it here. Here we go, paste it here. And then I'm going to add the claim. So the claim that I'm going to add is there are the claim that I'm going to add is the roles claim. Okay. So I'm going to say this is roles, all any claim, and I don't care about the separator, and I want the role to be in conf admin. So I want this API or all that methods underneath, I want only to be called if the user is in conf admin. Okay, got it? Anything else, folks? With that, I'm gonna say save, and it's gonna save it. And let's take a look at the policy. So we have audiences, we have everything set up. One thing that is is also needed is an issuer. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna add the issuer claim as well, just to be on the safe side. Okay, save it. So now this API is authenticated, and you can only call it once you have a valid JWT token. So let's try to call it now without the token, and then we will call it with the token. So if we call it without the token, um, and let's trace it. Yes. Okay. You see that 401 unauthorized. Access token is missing or invalid. Basically, there is no access token. So let's do that. Let's add a header. And in that header, we're going to call it authorization, and we're going to call it bearer. This is how you send an authorization token. You put bearer space, and then you use whatever we have here. Okay. So I'm going to just copy that from here and go back here, paste it. So my token is all set up, and let's cross our fingers and trace it. Here we go, 200. Okay, look, magic. So think of it, few steps, creating the app, roles, everything is set up. We are able to now call the API through that particular token and ID. Okay, so very simple. So, okay, now we're going to take it a little further. I mean, normally you won't be calling an APIs through CLI. You will need another app to call it. So let's go to our next step, which is create an app registration to represent the client app in API management. Okay, so that's an important step that we have to do to make sure that we have a client app, to call it. So let's go back to our app registration, and let me create a client app here now. Okay. So we go into the app registration and we say new registration, and we call it a client app 3. And we don't change anything. We just say register. At this point, you have registered the client app, and it is done. One thing we haven't done is, and let me just duplicate the tab here. One thing we haven't done it yet is give this client app access to our, to our API app. Okay, just like we did, if you remember, the Azure CLI client. Okay, so let's go into the app registrations, and let's look at our second. Let me find our server app or API app. We go in here, and now we go into the expose an API. And what we're going to do is we're going to copy the client ID of this app, add a client application, add it. That's it. So now we have added the client application. Okay, folks, we're gonna call it from a .NET application, this API, using this client app registration. Okay. In order to do that, what I need to do is basically add the add a URL, so to make sure that this thing is able to post back the token. So because we're gonna use Azure API, so I'm gonna add a platform. Since this is a mobile, this is a desktop application, I'm gonna select that, and I'm gonna add HTTP local host. Oh, not host. Local host as the URI. Okay, so we saved it. So now it's going to post back the token. So let's go to now our C# app where we are going to be making a call. We have 3 minutes, so let's hopefully we can do it. Hopefully everybody can see my screen. Everything is here. This is my scope. I'm just going to change it. I was testing it out. So let me use the you know app ID from here as the scope. So this is, I'm going to copy it. Sorry, wrong window. I'm going to go into my C++ application, paste it here. So this is, my API app GUID. Now let me quickly go in here and go into the client, get that GUID. That's going to be my client app, or client ID. That's, I'm going to paste it here. And now let me fix the URI. So this is the URI that I'm using. And let me go back here and go into API app. And let's see what is the URI that we are sending it to. So let me just go back here and quickly paste it here. And now let me call this API. Subscription and everything is the same. So let me run it. Any questions so far? I know we have 2 minutes. Oh, sorry. So this is the screen, and it's gonna uh, authenticate. It's gonna open a window to authenticate. Second, yes. So it sends an authentication URL. I'm gonna copy that URL. Go ahead, please. Question. Okay. So I'm going to paste this URL here, and so this is where my other persona, dat.prescott, is signed in, as you can see here. So I'm going to authenticate with that. I just want to show you if we do sign in. So it's going to sign in. It's going to no reply. That's interesting. Why it is saying that? Maybe it takes some time for that change to get into effect. But the idea is once you um, oops, I think we did not save the change. My mistake. That's why
It's a
it's not
lot for
showing.
a power lunch, Naveed. It's power-packed lunch today. It's great. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, man. Yeah, so I think I may have made a mistake here. Let me do this. This is that. So I may not have saved it. So let me just do that again. HTTP localhost. I know we are right on time. It's so yeah, that's been added here. So we may not have added it to the right place. So this, please forgive me on that. Let's stop it and let's run it again. And hopefully this time we can, get
Fingers
it work.
crossed.
Yes. Okay, so yes, so here is the sign in window. I'm gonna copy it. I'm going to paste it here and let's run it again. Uh, yes, so it says authentication
Yay.
complete. Okay, but look, response. So we got an error from the API. Why? Because dat.prescott is not in the role of conf admin. He only have conf reader. So you see that he has the key, everything is there, but since he's not in the role, we are not able to call the API. So it's kind of a RBAC for the API we are able to do just with API management, JWT policy, Azure AD, and OAuth. Any questions, folks?
Great presentation, Navi.
Thank you, folks. Thank you very much. So we just saw we can block we can allow and block based on the user's credential in Azure AD. So if there are no questions, I'm sorry I ran over a little bit, but thank you for your time and hope to see everybody next week for another session of Azure Power Lunch.